welcome to Jurassic Park 3 Minute. We'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad. And today we're going to discuss minute 41 of Jurassic Park 3. But before we get to that, David, this past week... I'm going to rephrase that. David, this last couple of minutes we've been talking a lot about the lab compound and the Embryonics Administration building, and on today's minute we feature a lot more of the kennels out the back as well, and Jurassicpedia has got a fantastic little article up on the kennels and the rest of the lab compound.
Actually, one of the stub articles that when I first came onto the Encyclopedia Project, I heavily extended. It used to be just about like 1 or 2 paragraphs. And so I started pulling screen caps from the DVD, pulling just generally going through the scene and describing it as I saw it. So that's kind of why the article is in a somewhat of a chronological order, where it goes from the Embryonics Administration lobby to the floor that were the production floor that we just talked about, and then to the kennels, which we're going to talk about.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it. Like, this was started back in the day where you could only get the screen caps and that off the DVDs. So, but no, you more than me are contributors on the site, and we're going to start pimping out some articles, featured articles, and that, and just let you know what's happening over there, and promote the Jurassic-pedia the best we can.
Calling for help.
Come on!
As we enter minute 40 of Jurassic Park 3, Amanda and Billy were stuck behind a door, the Velociraptor hanging from the mesh, snarling at it. As we open on minute 41, the raptor looks up and sees a triangular-shaped hole at the top of the door, and begins to climb. Amanda, looking down, realises that the raptor's now completely off the ground, and yells to Billy to push. The two push the gate hard, and it swings around with the raptor still hanging from the mesh, and continues past the locking point, and goes around to the rear wall. The impact of the gate slamming against the mesh forces the old lock to come free, and the bolt comes out, trapping the raptor in a similar small triangular space. At the 8-second mark, the raptor starts to call. This stops Grant dead in his tracks as he's escaping, and says, "Oh my God." He's calling for help. Paul comes back and grabs him by the arm and says, "Come on," and the two leave, fleeing with the rest of the survivors. At the 23-second mark, we cut back to the car park outside the Embryonics Administration building as the survivors run past the InGen sign and out into the car park. As they flee, they run past an abandoned Explorer and leave the car park behind as they enter the jungle. At the 30-second mark, we cut back to the steps as the male Velociraptor, now free, races out and starts calling even louder so the others can hear. We cut to the rest of the pack as they hear the calls and come to give chase. At the 39-second mark, we cut to an open field as Grant and the others run towards a herd of hadrosaurs. Startled, birds take flight, and the hadrosaurs themselves begin to stampede, scared by this sudden intrusion by the humans. At the 51-second mark, in the confusion, Billy falls to the ground and drops his camera bag. He gets up and continues running, but soon discovers the bag's no longer around his shoulder. And as the minute ends, Grant falls in the same spot, notices the bag and picks it up. Looking back at the herd, he continues on into minute 42. As we open on minute 40, we're still in the kennels here, and we get the raptor begins climbing that closed gate that's keeping Amanda and Billy stuck there.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where I feel like they kind of maybe overemphasize the raptor's intelligence in this movie, just because, I mean, you get the raptor looking up at the exposed open portion of the cage where it can climb over and get to the humans inside, and then the choir lifts up and you get the raptor leitmotif kind of.
Yeah. We talked last week about whether or not the raptors knew or spent time in the kennels and that here, and this sort of shows that maybe they weren't let go and they had to find their own way out back in the day. Being able to find these little holes and that, I don't Because the gate's not actually stuck here. The only reason it's closed is because the raptor's got its weight against it, holding them there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why, of course, as soon as it starts to climb and takes its weight off the ground and onto the gate, Amanda yells push. And it's probably Amanda's most intelligent action in the film so far. just realising what's going on, realising the raptor's weight's on that door, on that cage door gate, and yelling for Billy to push.
And again, what happens here as the raptor kind of climbs over and they push and then run off, and then we turn back and see the raptor calling out and making what was actually I always thought was one of the most interesting new vocalizations they give the raptors in this call. Like, it's kind of like a mix between a duck and a chicken. That kind of, I don't know what to call it's a crow in a way.
Yep.
Like a rooster's crow in a way, where it's just, as Alan Grant identifies it, a call for help. And again, overemphasizing the raptor's intelligence is not that the raptors before didn't call for help or reinforcements or anything like that. It's just that they were less vocal about it. They used more body language than anything.
Yeah, well, there's something else I want to bring up about that behind that gate in a minute. But before we get there, the Billy and Amanda pushes the gate around, that clangs up against the other wall, and the spring-loaded lock bolt sort of springs out and locks the gate closed. Seems to be spring-loaded here, not the fact that there's power on at the facility. Just the shock of the gate sort of slamming opens, let the lock come out. Which again makes Amanda and Billy free to run away while the raptor's trapped. And I just want to bring up the animatronic work here as well. Like, this is all animatronic. I'm pretty sure that's an animatronic behind that gate as well, isn't it? Or it's CG?
I think this scene was pretty much, I think, all animatronic. I don't call anything in here being CGI in any way. It's all Stan Winston.
Yeah, if anything, there'd be like wire removal and that from the full body animal behind that gate.
No, I think it was pretty much all like a guy done on a raptor suit with like a wire lifting him up.
Yeah, yep. And it's just, we've sort of mentioned before, and even we finally get in the Lost World with the raptors actually climbing stuff, using those claws to climb. And here we get to see, yes, it's on mesh. It's not sort of clawing the mesh and cutting through it like what's sort of described in the original Jurassic Park novel, where they can sort of cut through steel and that somehow with their claws, but here they're actually using their claws to climb. And I think it's just a great little addition to the film, because it's something we don't really get in the franchise a lot of. But
that's true, because I think it was in the first novel where we found that they would cling onto the electric fence, and despite the fence being electric, I recall it was like a groundskeeper guy came out and said that they really don't seem to mind that the fence is electrified. They just smash their faces into it regardless of its status of being electric or not.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat implied by Muldoon in I think it was the first movie, where he says that they would just attack, that the big one would have the other raptors just attack the fencing whenever the others came around.
Yep. Yeah, systematically checking for weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then again in the film there, where they've bit and clawed their way through those cables on that fence to get out.
That's right. There was chew marks on the fencing when Ellie and Muldoon pass it by.
Yep. And even in the novel, like it was the raptor pen was a chain link fence that was electrified, so they still cut their way through that as well and managed to bite their way through the barred windows on the lodge to get to the survivors inside. So.
Yeah, that's right. And the chewed. It's not really like wiring, is it? That was around the raptor fence. It was almost like piping that they had electrified.
I think the bars on the lodge were described as like rebar
like
Yeah.
thick steel bars, and they chew through it. So, but Amanda and Billy immediately run sort of away, and they're joined by Grant, Paul, and Udesky as they come out of a different cage that they'd hid in before, and you get that raptor begin to vocalise and call for help, which, as you were saying before, just a great little new sound that they're making, and it makes Grant pause and turn as he hears it and realises with some horror that the male's calling for help.
Actually, this is the only time I think we actually got the CGI was when we see them when Paul Kirby grabs Grant and they run off, and then we get the camera shot back at the raptor, and we see the raptor climbing over the top of the gate there.
Yep. Also notice here when they're sort of looking down, there's like a hose reel mounted to one of the cages, so maybe that was for cleaning out cages back in the day. And there seems to be like little hand control pads or lock pads or something in front of the cages, especially the big cages. Again, with no lights or nothing lit up, so there's definitely no power in this building at all. Because some of them almost look like they're handprint scanners, but I don't think that technology was around in 93 or 92.
No, I was thinking more like keypads.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, but Alan's transfixed on the trapped raptor, but yeah, as we said, Paul comes back and grabs him and yells, "Come on!" And they start running back down. We get a look back at the cage as the raptor's starting to climb its way up and out of the top, which it's a quick cut from here back out the front of the building, but it's assumed that raptor did climb back out, and it's the one that runs out and barks on the steps of the embryonics building, so it made short work of getting out of that corridor. So as we mentioned last minute, we don't really know how deep they've gone into the buildings here either, so it's going to catch up a lot quicker than what the humans are running through it.
Well, I also imagine that, once it got its feet on top of that cage there, all it had to do was really hop down. These animals have very powerful leg muscles, so it drop from a 6-foot-tall doorway would really not harm it in any way.
Yeah. But we cut outside and we see the InGen sign in that car park again with the moss on it, and
and we also get like a much closer up look at the sign and see with the how it's got a blue. Honestly, it's almost like an aqua blue, but it reminds me of like an old faded swimming pool color in LA or something.
Yep.
Where it probably would have been like a deep blue, similar to what we see with the other InGen logos in the Lost World at one point. But I do like that inclusion of the moss on there, because that's something that they did in the Lost World on the, like, pretty much all over the set. They had like this moss you can kind of just spray on there.
Yep, even the sort of InGen sign on top of the gates as well for the worker village had it all covered up there as well.
The InGen sign, the glass, the walls, it was everywhere. I loved it.
Yeah, even just the front windows for the operations building and that. But yeah, we sort of pan to the right here as we get the people running down the staircase and out into the car park at full speed away from the building, and the shot cuts to the rear view as they're running and leaving the car park, and we see a abandoned Explorer on their left as they run past it with, again, with that yellow InGen logo on it. And this car was later painted up in the actual Jurassic Park Explorer colours and thrown on the back lot. It's in that big rib cage that's on display of the Spinosaur there.
Yeah, part of the backlot tour.
Yeah, yep.
And interesting enough is that it was kind of stuck in between, like within the rib cage of the bones of the Apatosaurus used in the Lost World.
Yeah, it's been one of those long. It's been around for a while. Like, people have said, "Oh yeah, there's an Explorer in Jurassic Park 3," and people are expecting, "Oh well, it's the Jurassic Park Explorer." Where no, it's just they've reused that car design or that same sort of car for a work vehicle here for whatever reason. Maybe if they got a fleet of Explorers for the Jurassic Park, then maybe they got a couple as VIP cars or something for on Sauna when dignitaries or something come in. Or Hammond.
That is possible.
Yeah. But again, that's all wild speculation.
Interestingly, is that when you see them run up into the forest, you can see them running past these concrete pillars. It looks like garbage cans, but they're not, because they have like really no way to access inside them. They're just basic concrete pillars outside of a and then you can see the parking lot, those little concrete blockers that they use to head the top of a parking space in a parking lot. And so that kind of makes me wonder if this area had been cut back at some point, and it was like the start of the road or so.
Well, you reckon these sort of bollards were removable?
No, that the forest had kind of creeped up to them.
Oh, yeah.
And that the forest itself had been cut back at some point.
Well, that's, yeah, I suppose with the shot up on top of the hill a few minutes ago, looking down on the complex itself, it didn't look like there was anything further forward of the embryonics administration apart from that car park. So obviously you'd have the main road come in from the worker village or elsewhere to the front here, and maybe they just say these concrete bollards surrounding it. Don't drive down here, you're going to end up in the river or something. But it does sort of serve the purpose there of being the outer edge of the complex here, and at least the jungle would have been cut back to this area anyway, if there was nothing else beyond it. Maybe like the original novel, maybe there were like manicured lawns and gardens and that have long since disappeared in the ferns and trees. But we get one last look at the embryonics administration building here, as well as the male raptor comes running out and stops halfway down the stairs and starts calling out to the others, and that's when we cut into the jungle. Can't be too far away. I suppose we did mention last minute too about just how the raptors, yes, the raptor nest is a fair way away, but they're tracking these humans because of what Billy's done. So it's sort of weird now. It's only taken to when this one raptor's got out on the steps that it's been able to alert the others. They haven't been able to hear the commotion inside. But we get the two males here listen and look at each other, and then we get the cut to the female. She looks at the camera and then turns her head and runs off, and you sort of get that eye move. It's not like she's rolling her eyes, but she's sort of looking at us, then sort of rolls her eyes back just before her head moves back. Sort of, again, just fantastic movement from the animatronic, just sort of showing that intelligence. And then we cut back. Now, I've got a little problem here because we get into this field, and this is a pretty big field. This looks a lot like what we flew over when we first got to Sauna. And again, going back to that aerial or that mountain shot looking down the valley, there was no opening planes like this that we've seen.
Well, I think it was actually the same location, at least, because I know that they shot over Kahili Ranch on Kauai. Then they filmed this scene in Kahili Ranch on Kauai because the mountain ranges are similar.
Yeah, I guess as you mentioned in that minute too, where we flew over the herd, you can almost see where the fences have been digitally removed just by the tree lines, and it's sort of, you can see, yes, it's a little bit more undulating country here, but you've still got that tall elephant grass type stuff, and almost like the killing fields from The Lost World. But we sort of get a shot here of Alan entering the field, and he yells into the herd as we pull back to see Amanda and the others running in amongst the hadrosaurs that are here. So again, we get to see some herbivores completely CGI, especially once they start running, and it's not the best effect. But Grant's trying to use them to hide in amongst the herd.
And you can actually see infants among the herd, so they must be breeding pretty fast because these were, according to the DPG, these were only grown 2 years prior.
Yeah, well, we mentioned that last minute as well about how that's DPG stuff. Sort of, how does that fit when you've got? It's not like the boardroom scene where it's a deleted scene. It's no longer canon because it wipes out what you're trying to do in Jurassic World. But here, this is the film. You can't, unless you write the whole movie out as no longer canon. You can't sit there and have eggs and everything here and the disrepair of the building, and then just go back and reuse the lab with rusty needles, and or even if you had new needles. But anyway, we've talked. We're not going to double up on that. There's a couple of infant parasaurolophus here as well, isn't there?
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
And interesting enough is that the parasaurs are green, and they're like really green in some shots, and really brown in some shots. And I've seen, unfortunately, I never saved some of the images but they're pre-redigitization CGI, final CGI, where they had originally envisioned the parasaurs to be brown, but for some reason recolored them green in this. They were supposed to be basically the same color as the Lost World parasaurs, and I don't know why, but they recolored them to be green.
There is one that's that brown, isn't there? I thought I seen a photo someone posted online a little while ago. Apparently they took that design of the brown one and just shrunk the CGI model into an infant.
Well, actually, what they did was they didn't shrink the model. They actually created whole new models for the infants with shorter, like Elvis horns or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, the infants are almost a brownish color. So it's kind of strange that the adults, they kind of recolored green. And not all of them, though. Just some of them have this greenish tinge about them. Some of them are really green, and then some of them are kind of almost brown.
I suppose don't they go that sort of greeny brown colour for Jurassic World as well?
No, back in Jurassic World, they were their original colors again.
Okay.
They were the Lost World colors with the what was it? It was the brown with the reddish backs on the neck and back of the neck.
Yep. I do like here too how you've sort of got those large black volcanic rocks just jotted amongst the field as well.
Are those rocks or are those poop?
Oh.
It's always I'm gonna bring that up because I've always wondered: is that poop or is those supposed to be boulders?
I don't think herbivore. Oh, I suppose if it's been there for a little while, it'll go black. But yeah, well that's a very good.
Because there's honestly something I've been wondering since I was a child. I'll admit it.
Well, we get to see some poop later on, so we might have to do some comparisons. But I suppose, as we've seen with that initial fly over the island too, there's brachiosaurs around here somewhere, or patasaurs, so we know how big a triceratops is. Somehow, I still don't know how that triceratops done a poo that big that Malcolm stand beside in the original movie, but they heap that stuff up.
Yeah, it's kind of actually I kind of imagined that every once in a while they would have just gone and just taken shovels and go out there with a Jeep and pile it up so that it wasn't just laying everywhere, you know?
Well,
we see that in I think the video feeds on the Jurassic World viral site.
Yep. Oh, we got plenty of compies to worry about that. On Sauna anyway. As they run forward, the camera sort of pans up, and we once again get we get that flock of birds flying up into the sky here as well, ahead of the herd as they start to stampede and taking on that sort of fright and flight mentality. The hadrosaurs begin running away from these silly little people that are running in amongst them, because they do start running before the raptors come bursting out of the jungle here. But it almost makes me wish that Nash and Cooper didn't both go to the Spinosaur at the airstrip. I would have loved someone to get trampled, just to show how dangerous a herd of herbivores. Like for the most part, the kill's always up to the carnivores, but I would have just loved to see a herbivore death as well, just to show that they're not big cows, they're gentle giants, especially in the wild like this.
That's something I've actually really wanted from like Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom as well. I mean, we really don't see that after Lost World, is that the herbivores can be equally, if not more so, dangerous than the carnivores. And I've always been thinking about how, like, I mean, we sort of see it when the Indominus attacks the Ankylosaurus. The Ankylosaurus just swamping that big club tail on the ground and trying to threaten the Indominus away. But I always thought about, I mean, it wouldn't be so cool in a Jurassic Park movie to see see the human characters just running from a pissed off Ankylosaurus or even a Therizinosaurus, trying to just dodge the claws as you get too close to its young. And I mean, I know that obviously be rehashing the Stego scene from The Lost World, but it still would have been cool.
Well, we'll get to it next series when we get to Jurassic World. But you could have that attack there with those ankylosaurs and not have the Indominus Rex there. Like the threat could be from that club tail. It already hits the gyrosphere once and sends it flying across, and that's what sort of shorts out the systems and makes it go upside down, and they can't get to the phone. But that's if you're going to say that Indominus Rex has a bite force capable enough of crushing that bulletproof Perspex bubble or glass or whatever it is, then have the threat of that, having those two ankylosaurs mating or whatever, or one male's trying to mate, trying to show off to the female, and he gets territorial and says, "What are you doing here?" and just destroys that ball, and they've got to get out of it before he just completely destroys it. But that's for another time. That's for a movie that unfortunately didn't happen. But it's especially here because Billy he falls to the ground. I'm not going to say I wrote he got knocked to the ground, but I'll say he trips over and falls to the ground, because if you're getting hit by these large animals running like this, I think there's going to be more than just falling into the grass, because we get Udesky take a bit of a comedic forward flip into the grass as well here.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, there's kind of one thing I don't like is that, I mean, he can be a good action star if you'd like him to, Michael Jeter, and he kind of gets delegated in this role to the kind of just a dope in a way.
Yep. But Billy gets back up off the ground and clips the belt and the parachute back together and realises he's dropped the camera bag. Grant gets knocked down also, but luckily it's right where that bag and where Billy fell earlier. And as the minute ends, Grant picks the bag up and continues to run. But anything else on the herd or the stampede?
You can see Billy kind of he looks back and he almost looks like he wants to attempt going back for the bag, but he's running because, well, the herbivores are coming and you don't want to get stepped on them.
Yeah, well, you can see that look on his face. He's unsure of himself whether or not he should. Just realising, I suppose, too, that the bag's gone. It's interesting because in the novel, it's actually Grant yells out to keep going. I've got it. So, sort of one of that's why Billy, I think, or the script, one of the two. But yeah, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it was the script because I think I remember that in the script.
Yeah. So yeah, it's sort of, and Billy would have seen Grant pick it up as well. And although he doesn't want Grant to know what's inside it, I think at that point he could keep on running while Grant's sort of following.
No.
What's weirder, and we'll get to it next minute, is the fact that Grant falls over right where Billy did, and maybe there's a log in the grass or something they tripped over, but gets the bag, and then they get so far separated next minute when they're pretty much following each other.
I can imagine there's probably a lot of ruts and just like general potholishness things in the ground just because of these herbivores stomping down on it, you know?
Yeah, little rocks or little poo. Could be anything. Quickly looking over at the script and novel comparisons. In the script, it's Grant, Paul, and Amanda that are trapped behind the gate, not Amanda and Billy. So there's three of them there to help. Which I suppose if you got three of them there, they're going to be able to push that gate a lot easier. Whether the Raptors behind, especially when you remember that it was only Grant and Ellie keeping the control room door shut from that Raptor there. So when Grant stops, the sound the Raptors making are the same as what the Resonate chamber were making from the start of the film, but in the film itself, we can clearly hear the difference because we know when Alan was blowing on that thing, he didn't have any idea what sounds he was trying to make.
He was just kind of blowing into it like a raw flute, you know, where you just don't press your fingers on anything to make a note at all. You just kind of blow through it. Yeah,
and then we'll get there later towards the end of the film too, where he sort of starts to blow differently through it, trying to get that. Now he knows what the sound is, trying to mimic that sound.
Well, he also remembers the sound that they used to make. And in a way, I mean, you could justify it by saying that it almost sounds like the hissing noises they used to make.
Yeah.
Those threatening hissing noises.
Yep. Also, Grant says she's calling for help, not he, which it's clearly the male that's behind the gate. Of course, the males have got the... Okay.
Again, to be fair, though, because unlike Ian Malcolm, he never actually saw the he never saw the two genders together, so he only ever saw the females in the first on the first island.
Yeah, good
So
point.
he really wouldn't have known. He might have even assumed they were still female.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, yep. Well, we don't get any dialogue from him later, even saying that they look different, or we sort of talked, even going way back to the Dream, the Allen on the plane, where we get the newer design Raptor instead of the older one. Like it's just assume that Grant knows that this is the same as what they look like on Nublar, but we know better than that.
Yeah, that was kind of irritating me that they never acknowledge, or at least Grant never acknowledges that there are different Raptors from